it comes very controversial. Like, everyone has their own opinion, but the reality is, if your TV settings are off, your picture's going to be off. There's been so many people that have made these are the worst looking 4K discs, or these are the best looking 4K discs, and I've gone through, and the majority of the worst looking 4K discs, I have a good time with them. I think they look really good, and it all has to do with your TV and your TV settings. Now, every TV manufacturer is going to be completely different, and everyone's TV settings are going to be different. Over the 5 years that I sold big screen televisions and high definition televisions, I got to understand a lot more than the average person, and then diving into it, especially into the really nerdy side of how TV settings can affect your picture, it was something that it's been kind of always on the forefront of my thought process. Anytime I set up a new TV outside the box, they're going to be set up to have like the best possible picture for a store setting, super bright, and that's not how the film was recorded or the director wanted his film to look. And so you can do complete side-by-sides where a film with the normal standard settings of your television is going to be really, really blown out. But then you look and you turn all those features off, and then you get the film the way it looked maybe in the theater, or exactly the way that the director intended. And so there's many instances of that. But the two things that really just kind of, with the 4K TVs, that just stand out to me is when people crank up their sharpness and the motion flow. Now, motion flow is something that it adds artificial frames into the picture. So they're frames that were never recorded, but it's your TV that's upping the frame rate. So you're going from 24 frames a second, which is what we're used to watching films at, to 60 frames a second. And so adding all those artificial frames, that's going to give you an image that just doesn't look natural. And so anytime that there's motion flow on the TV, I turn it off or extremely low, whatever my TV will allow, to get a better picture. Then the other thing is having your sharpness cranked all the way up. You're also going to get this effect called soap opera effect. It's where you have the images, but they look like they're glued onto the television. They don't look like they're part of the film. And so you have those aspects. Now, they sell you all these bells and whistles to, basically sell you on the TV. This TV is better because it has these features. Well, I'm here to tell you that most of those features, I have them either off or really low in my television, and I have an amazing time. And like I said, those worst off discs, I think they're some of the better looking 4Ks in my collection. Now, there are some that are better than others, like Spartacus is an amazing looking 4K, but this one right here comes extremely controversial, and every time I talk about it, I get in the comments how I'm wrong, and people just have an opinion on this. And because there's so many people that have this is the worst looking 4K ever, and so many people that disagree, and it's just a really divided in the entire community on this one disc. Now, it's not it's not subjective of whether you like the movie or you don't like the movie. This is a fact of this is what people are reporting and what they're seeing on both ends. And how could both people have different opinions and be so completely opposite? And the reality is, it goes back to your TV settings. So we're talking about True Lies. Now, this is a movie here, while I love it, and so it's not not a conversation about the quality of the film or if you like this film, but it is this transfer. Now, there's tons and tons and tons and tons of videos of how this is the most egregious thing ever. James Cameron is the worst. This is horrible with the waxy faces. Now, to reproduce waxy faces and get that on this image, I had to crank up my sharpness all the way up. And then I had to turn my DNR all the way up. And so those two things alone, now there's several settings in my TV that change the picture as well, but those are the two main focuses because that's what I heard a lot of. And so when you change your sharpness and you turn it all the way up, now I have mine all the way off, and then the same thing with my motion flow. So motion flow is going to give you more frames that were never recorded. Now, these films are made in 24 frames per second, but if you're showing something in 60 frames per second, you're going to get a frame rate which doesn't look real. It looks so realistic that it seems artificial. And so when you're watching it, it's very jarring, and that's not how the movies are recorded. So it's your TV just kind of making things up That's the main thing that I always have turned off, and that's the reason why. But then the other thing is the sharpness. So sharpness, when it's all cranked up, you're going to get a little bit more of the waxy faces, but more than anything, you're going to get this halo effect. So like in the shoulders here or around any edges, you're going to have like almost like a double layer, and it's going to be a little bit gray, a little bit see-through, and they call that a halo effect. You're going to get that with the sharpness cranked all the way up. Then if you have the DNR all the way up, that's going to give you extra smoothing. So your TV and 4K players themselves have a lot of these settings too. And I know my 4K player has upscaling and DNR built in along with my television. Now if you turn all those features off, a movie like this, which is just standard Blu-ray, and it's one of the older ones, it does not look as good or as sharp. If I crank all those settings up, this looks pretty good. But this is going to now be a problem. And if you're spending all that extra money on a 4K television, it's to enjoy these 4K movies. So the reality is, these are an old technology and half the resolution. This is 4 times the resolution here, so it's more than half. So this is 4 times the resolution of a standard Blu-ray, and these older Blu-rays don't even look as good as some of the newer ones. Now there was a newer scan and redo of this Into the Blue movie, and that one people were reporting is just a much nicer picture. Better film grain, overall sharper, and that was just using newer technology to redo this Blu-ray. So going from this to this is an amazing picture when your settings are really low. And then you do have these older Blu-rays that don't look as good anymore without the upscaling. So with this one right here, having all that stuff turned off, having your DNR turned off, and now my television has 2 different DNR modes, and that right there was going to give you the waxy faces. When I crank all that stuff up, you get the waxy faces, you get the halo effect, and then you have the frames, the extra frames that were never recorded. And all that stuff right there is going to give you this picture that everyone has complained about. There's an entire ton of videos online by guys that really understand this on a way nerdier level than I do, and you're going to be able to check those out down below. But just turning those settings off, for me, I always have an amazing picture. Now they go a step further where they have 5 different settings that you should have completely off and change to give you the best possible picture. For me, the only other one that I really worry about is color. Now again, color is going to come down to how you like the television, how you like the look of it, and if you like the blue color and you like that blue tone, and I know a lot of people do, you know, it's kind of jarring to go from blue to warm. But warm is going to have the standard white color that they use. I don't remember what it's called, but the standard white color that they use in all broadcast, all movies, it's kind of the basis. That is found in your warm setting. Now, a lot of people going from the blue setting or the cool setting to the warm setting talk about how it goes from blue to a yellow and having like a more yellow picture. But when you see it, it's actually the warm is going to give you the most realistic color spectrum. And then my favorite thing to always go to is anything with snow. So snow, if it has like everything has a blue tint around it and it's like super blue, it's never going to be realistic compared to the warm setting. Now I think that that's going to give you the best possible whites and the most realistic skin tones. If you like the other color setting, I totally get it. To each their own, enjoy it. But those other settings are completely ruining your experience. And then this is something that I think it fell out of fashion, but this is something that when I sold big screen TVs and the HD when it was brand new, this was kind of a standard. Now, I've seen these things as priced anywhere from a few dollars to a few $100s. And so you don't need to go get a professional calibration tool to calibrate your TV. You can adjust it for the most part by eye, but something like this you can pick up cheap. You can get these on eBay, but this is just a HD Basics calibration video disc, and so you put this in and it's just going to, and this one specifically, it's not the best one, but it's the one I have and I understand it a little bit, but it goes into nerdy details of how this stuff kind of works and then what you should have and how you should have your settings, but then also the contrast. Now, a lot of people have reported that, I don't have the one up here, but a lot of people have reported that 4K discs look darker than anything else. the reality is, you know, I have an opinion as to why, but the reality is it's your contrast. If you adjust the contrast from the standard setting of the TV and you adjust it, and I would use any of the discs that people say are reference discs. I made a video, there's tons of videos out there. I'll also link that at the end if you want to check it out. But the reference discs, if you start with that, you're probably going to have a great experience and not have to fork over any money for a calibration disc if you're trying to just adjust your colors and get the best possible picture. Now, contrast, if you just amp it up just enough where those reference discs look perfect, the majority of the rest of your films will look great, including your older Blu-ray movies. That's been the problem in the conversation. People say that their Blu-ray movies look fine, but 4K discs don't. And you have different things between HDR and Dolby Vision that are going to change that picture quality. But when you adjust your contrast where the 4K movie looks great and then your old Blu-rays still look really good, then you've nailed it and you've hit it right in the sweet spot. But every TV manufacturer is going to be different. Every single setting is going to be different. But the two main focuses and the two main takeaways that I highly recommend always turning off or extremely low is going to be your motion flow, your sharpness. Those are going to be the number two. And then the other one would be turning off your DNR settings. Anything that's built in to digitally noise reduct, that's, you know, it sounds really good, but it's not. It's going to harm your picture because what it's going to do is it's going to over smooth everything. It's going to take away any kind of film grain possible, and you're going to get more of that waxy image or that artificial image. That's just been my experience on these 4K televisions, setting it up, doing the colors, and how I think that most reviewers that say these 4K discs are the worst, I think they're wrong. But I don't think they're wrong on purpose. I think they're wrong because, you know, just not having that extra knowledge of what each TV setting may or may not do to their television. Check this video out right here if you want to get started on 4K reference discs and where to start calibrating your system. And with that, remember to watch a movie today, and I'll catch you guys next time.